My busy wife was having an affair with an employee. I made sure our kids knew the kind of mother they had. Before we dive in, just a small favor. If you like stories filled with drama, twists, and real emotion, hit that subscribe button and support the channel. That way, you'll never miss out on content that keeps you hooked. This is my third attempt at writing this because I always end up deleting it before I post it. The third time's the charm, I guess. It also feels like some kind of messed up form of therapy to get it off my chest by finally posting it here. I and my wife, Sarah, 41F, have been married for almost 14 years. We have 2 kids and a nice house in the suburbs. Things weren't bad, just predictable. We worked hard, raised our kids, and every now and then went on a date night to try and spice things up. We met through a mutual friend, Greg, who I've known since college. Sarah had just moved back into town after finishing her degree, and Greg thought we'd hit it off. At the time, I wasn't really looking for anything serious. I had just gotten out a long-term relationship and wasn't in the best headspace. But Greg kept nudging us toward each other. Sarah was easy to talk to, and she didn't seem like she was trying too hard. I wasn't looking for love. I was more about living in the moment and keeping things light. I even told her early on that I wasn't sure about jumping into anything serious. She seemed fine with that, but despite that, it didn't stay casual for long. We kept hanging out and texting all the time. 3 months in, I realized I enjoyed being around her a lot. Slowly, without even realizing it, I was all in. It wasn't any grand romantic start, but it worked. After about 2 years of dating, we moved in together. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about marriage for a while, but Sarah brought it up casually one night while we were watching TV. Like our way of doing things, we agreed it made sense. The next thing I knew, we were planning a small wedding with just close friends and family. As for the kids, well, we didn't exactly plan for them either. Our first came about a year after we got married, but we were both in a good place, so we just rolled with it. The second kid came a couple of years later, and just like that, life got busy, both with raising children and with work. Sarah works in event planning, which means a lot of late nights and weekends away. It used to be a point of pride that I trusted her so much. After all, I never gave her a reason to doubt me, and she seemed like she was always where she said she'd be. Over time, that made me build up a pretty strong trust in her. I hardly think that's unreasonable. One key thing in the story that I really have to mention, as silly as it might sound, is that my wife loves pearls. Her favorite pieces of jewelry have to be the pearl pieces I bought her over the years. She was weirdly obsessed with pearls, which I found rather ironic since she absolutely hated eating oysters. She would make a big deal about making sure the brands I bought the pearls from were sourcing them in a manner that was ethical. I didn't care that much, but I had to make sure because she'd do her homework. With all that pearl love over the years, I didn't disappoint. I bought her a pearl necklace for our wedding, a bracelet for our 5th anniversary, and earrings for our 10th, all from expensive brands that made sure the farming process was completely ethical. She was practically obsessed with them. She wore at least one piece to every event, and on special occasions she'd wear all 3 like they were some sort of good luck charm or something. If it wasn't a special occasion or event, they'd never come out of their box. Imagine how surprised I must have been when I was doing laundry one day and found her favorite earrings stuffed in the pocket of her coat. A coat she hadn't worn in months, by the way. I was just folding the clothes, making sure the pockets were empty before tossing them in the laundry basket. And there they were, those small pearl studs I gave her for our anniversary. The same earrings she wore all the time, for work stuff or when she had important events. They were her go-to. So seeing them stuffed in a coat pocket like they were spare change, yeah, that was worrying. They were always in the velvet-lined boxes they came in if she wasn't wearing them. I asked her about it casually, trying not to sound paranoid. She laughed it off and said something about taking them off after some event and forgetting to put them back. But the laugh didn't reach her eyes. I don't know if you all understand what I mean, but there was something in her eyes that didn't sit right with me. I've known her long enough to see the body language. It felt like she was dismissing me, and that was my first real feeling that something was off. That's when I began to piece together all the weird little things I had noticed before, but brushed off. I had to become a spy overnight, try to carry out all the activities subtly enough. Suddenly I'm watching her more closely, making mental notes of her schedule, comparing what she says she's doing with what actually seems possible. Every time she had a late-night meeting, I'd check her social media like some kind of detective, trying to match up her story with whatever breadcrumbs I could find online. It was very exhausting, especially since even with all that, I wasn't getting anywhere. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. She was careful, or at least careful enough not to leave anything obvious. Then, one Friday night, she tells me she's meeting a client at a hotel restaurant downtown for some big event she's managing. She said she'd be out late, maybe not back until midnight. At this point, the feeling to follow her was so strong that I figured I'd do a little stakeout, just to see if she was really where she said she'd be. I could have hired a pie, but I wanted to save the money since I didn't have anything I could bet my life on yet. I drove over to the hotel around 9 p.m., parked in a spot where I could see the entrance, and waited. No sign of her car. I waited for over an hour, maybe even two, just staring at the entrance like some kind of idiot, hoping I'd see her walk out and prove me wrong. But nope, no Sarah. By this point, I was starting to feel a very tight feeling in my chest. It was like everything I'd been trying to ignore was coming true. She wasn't where she said she'd be. So all I could wonder was where the hell was she going to be at that time of night if it wasn't at the hotel? I eventually made my way back home. And no, she wasn't there. Something changed in me that night. That's when I decided to step up my game. I've been trying to check her phone whenever I had the chance, but she must have been one step ahead of me. She had disappearing messages turned on in her apps, and her texts were half deleted. I couldn't just ask her why, because that would have given away the fact that I was snooping. Plus, we always had access to each other's phones, so asking her directly would have looked suspicious. I also started noticing her social media was weirdly bland. Like, how is she even getting these event management gigs? Her accounts were so lifeless. Barely any posts about the stuff she claimed to be working on. It was almost like she was covering her tracks, keeping things clean on the surface, while hiding whatever was really going on. I remember having a fleeting thought that my wife might have been some kind of low-key escort. That was a silly guess, though. At that point, though, I was at a total loss. I started thinking the only way out of this mess was to confront her directly. I was tired of sneaking around and driving myself crazy. But before I did that, one thing popped into my credit card statements. Old school tracking. I hadn't been paying attention to the finances. I mean, for the most part. I let her handle most of the bills and purchases because I just didn't care to micromanage that stuff. I trusted her, but now I found exactly what I needed. It wasn't hard to spot. There were charges for fancy dinners and hotel stays at places we'd never been together. And they weren't business expenses either, since she had a separate card for all that stuff. One charge in particular jumped out at me. Some hotel that wasn't even in our city. It wasn't near her office, and when I looked it up, it was one of those boutique spots that couples go to. Definitely not the kind of place you'd have a work meeting at that moment. Was when I started to seriously question whether all the meetings she had on Teams were even work meetings at all. All the time, she'd be on that app messaging her coworker about something very important at night. I mean, she's always been a workaholic, and I've always protested trying to get her to relax. With little luck, it was hard for me to even figure out what was real and what wasn't. I knew her job was a real thing, and that she was actually very busy a lot of the time, but it seemed that she was tucking whatever else she was doing under the shroud of work. And it hit she might have been cheating on me with a coworker. For someone as busy as her, it almost had to be. The next time I got the opportunity to check her phone, I went straight to her work apps, which weren't locked in any way. She opened Teams over 100 times each day, so a lock would have just slowed her down. Anyway, I noticed she had DMs with a particular person, and from the look of it, this person was lower in the corporate hierarchy. They were having very explicit conversations in there, with one thread nearly making me toss my phone. A conversation where they were talking about their favorite positions and how they should try them next time. Interspersed with their dirty talk, they were also discussing actual work stuff here and there. It hurt like hell to see all that. But in a strange way, I was relieved to finally have something concrete. It was the first and only piece of real evidence I had. I made sure to screen record the entire conversation and send it over to my own phone. I had to make sure I had everything on hand. That was about 3 weeks ago now, and she still hasn't noticed anything, although it must have been affecting me more than I realized, because even my kids have noticed. They've been asking if I'm feeling okay. And yeah, maybe I didn't look great. I haven't been eating or sleeping much, and I probably looked like hell. They don't know what's really going on, though, and I can't bring myself to tell them. All I keep thinking about is what's the next move. It's hard staying in the same house as a cheating wife, but I know I can't act rashly because my kids are going to be in the middle of this. I keep thinking about what this would mean for them if I divorced her. It's not just about me, right? They're going to be stuck in the middle of this, and part of me wants to talk things out, but I already know what she'll say. I don't even know what to do anymore. My mind's been running in circles. Should I just separate and see where that goes? I can't stop thinking about the kids. I've always tried to be a good father to them, and splitting up the family feels like I'd be betraying them. This isn't some random fight I can brush off. This is my wife, the mother of my kids. I've even been thinking about talking to my brother. He's a lawyer, and he might have some advice. Maybe he can help me figure out what's best, but that would mean exposing this whole mess. Or should I just stay? If she's doing her thing, maybe I should do mine. I'm sure I could find find someone to mess around with when I'm in the mood. Maybe I could have my own fling and even the score. I don't know. Is that stupid? What do you guys think? Am I crazy for even considering staying? Okay, fair point. Cheating back might help me feel more equal, but I'm always going to want to do more and more to make sure her debt feels paid off. If I'm going to be sleeping around, I'd much rather do it as a bachelor. Plus, having my own flings could get extremely messy. I don't need that right now. And yes, I think I'll eventually tell my brother about this because I need someone close to confide in. Update, these past few months have been a complete blur. My brother has been an immense help, and a lot of your comments help too. I'm not even sure how I've made it this far without completely losing my mind. My brother didn't mince words when I first told him about everything. He told me flat out that staying in this marriage was not only going to destroy me, but would mess up the kids more than just calling it quits. He said the longer I waited, the worse it would get. I didn't want to believe him at first, because who wants to admit their marriage is over? But he made it good if I didn't act soon. Sarah could spin the whole thing. Once she suspects that I know about her cheating, she's smart enough to turn the kids against me, maybe even screw me over financially. I also didn't need to stay with a woman I'd resent more and more with each passing day. I started the process of filing for divorce not long after that talk with my brother. I wasn't looking for a drawn-out legal battle, but I knew I needed to protect myself and the kids. The process was already painful enough, and I couldn't risk her taking control of the narrative. I made it clear to my brother that I wanted this to move fast, and he agreed. There was no reason to let this drag on. Still, I knew I had to play it very calm, especially with the kids involved. They were old enough to get a sense of what was happening, so I decided to pick out parts of the screen recording that proved my wife's infidelity, but I made sure they were free of explicit material. Just the I miss yous, I love yous, and when are we going to see each other again? Messages I'd seen in the DMs. I know some of you might disagree with telling my kids the truth instead of protecting the image of their mother, but she can go to hell. It's better they know from a young age the kind of woman she is now. I wasn't just going to play the good dad who got cheated on. I was going to play the good dad who became bad because he was cheated on. I couldn't bear it if they hated me after all this. So I made sure there was a proper person for them to hate. When the time came, I went for the jugular. Sarah's company had a strict no fraternization policy, and management wasn't allowed to hook up with employees. She knew that and talked about it so much that I knew that too. So I guess I had to use that to my advantage. I gathered everything: credit card statements, emails, hotel receipts, every shred of proof I had. Then I sent an anonymous tip to her HR department that weekend. I wanted to hit her where it really hurt. Her job. I knew it would kill her. Fast forward to the Tuesday afterward. She came home crying. That's like full-on ugly crying. Of course I played dumb. Asked her what was wrong, all while knowing exactly what was up. She didn't say much at first, just kept sobbing, pushed me away, and stormed off. The next day, she told me she didn't go into work and that she'd been given some time off. Yeah, sure. I didn't push, didn't argue. I just waited for the right moment. Then, sometime toward the evening, I handed her the divorce papers. You should have seen her face. It was like she'd been hit by a truck. It took her a few seconds to connect the dots between her work drama and the papers I just served her. She broke down hard. I mean, she was crying so much that the kids came in asking what was going on. That's when I took out the collage of messages I'd put together and sat them down. I didn't sugarcoat it. They were both teenagers. I told them straight up that their mom had done some awful things. I was careful with my words. I didn't want to scar them for life, but I wasn't going to lie either. Sarah, of course, started losing it, throwing stuff, shouting at me, trying to paint herself as the victim, trying to get me to shut up. I had never seen her like that, and obviously neither had my children, so they were extremely frightened. I took the kids to my room, locked the door, and just waited for things to calm down. After a while, I packed up the kids, threw their already packed bags into the car, and drove off to my parents' place. That's where we stayed for a while, just to give everyone space. The weeks that followed were brutal. I mean, Sarah was calling everyone we knew to share her side of the story. Something about how everything was a mistake. It was funny because I hadn't told anyone apart from my brother and parents. But she was calling everyone, trying to preempt me and telling on herself in the process. When some of those friends called or texted me, I just sent them the screenshots. I had the uncensored version since I couldn't really waste time arguing with people. Our lawyers went back and forth trying to finalize the divorce. I got the house and the settlement, which was a win. Partial custody of the kids, who by this point didn't want much to do with her considering all the drama and a good chunk of our savings. She tried to fight me on it, but with all the evidence of her spending from our account that was meant for taking care of the kids on her affair partner, she didn't have a leg to stand on. It does really suck that despite her violent outburst, cheating, and the kids' unwillingness to live with her custody still ended up being 6,040 in my favor. It pisses me off, but the legal system is so biased toward women, so I just had to take it like that. I gather that she apparently left her job not long after the whole thing blew up. I guess word got around, and her reputation at work was in the toilet. And with the kind of person Sarah is, I don't think she quit voluntarily either. She was demoted or forced out. Whatever it was, she couldn't handle it and walked away. And that made me just a little happier despite everything. We had to meet recently at a family event, one of the kids' birthdays, and she tried to act like everything was fine, but it's clear she's struggling, she's crumbling, and it gives me the kind of closure I never thought I'd get. Watching her deal with the fallout from her choices is more satisfying than any apology she could have offered. Life isn't perfect on my end, but I'm happier now. At least I don't have to live with the constant suspicion and lies.